We've had thousands of years to evolve past war. We've built cities, cured diseases, sent people to the moon. And yet right now, somewhere on Earth, humans are killing other humans. The same pattern playing out again and again. According to evolutionary psychology, war isn't a bug in human nature, it's a feature. Here's why. If you want to understand the psychology behind human behavior, subscribe now. New videos drop every Tuesday and Friday, breaking down why we do what we do. Anthropologist Dunbar discovered something fascinating. Humans can maintain stable relationships with about 150 people. That's it. Dunbar's number represents the maximum group size our brains evolved to handle during most of human history. For 300,000 years, humans lived in small tribes. Your survival depended on knowing everyone personally. Evolution shaped your brain to feel intense loyalty to your tribe, because if your tribe died, you died. But modern nations have millions of people. Your brain cannot process that many individuals as real people. Neuroscience research shows that when groups get too large, your brain sees them as abstractions, categories, statistics, and that makes it easy to justify harming them when they're framed as threats. Your tribal brain is trying to navigate a world it was never designed for, and in that confusion, it defaults to what it knows. Protect the in-group, fear the out-group. Psychologists have run an experiment over and over. You take people who've never met, divide them into random groups, and within minutes they start favoring their own group. They give more resources to their group. They rate their group as smarter, kinder, more trustworthy, and they view the other group with suspicion. This is called in-group bias, and it happens automatically. Your brain does it instinctively, because for most of human history, your in-group kept you alive. They shared food. They protected you from predators. They helped raise your children. Loyalty to your group was survival, but that same instinct created out-group suspicion, because resources were limited and other groups were competition. Social psychologist Henry Tajfel's research shows that humans will create us versus them, divisions over almost nothing, and once that division exists, conflict becomes almost inevitable, because your brain is designed to protect us and fear them. Here's a psychological principle that explains enormous conflict. When resources feel scarce, your brain shifts into competition mode, and once you're in competition mode, everyone outside your group starts looking like a threat. Research on scarcity mindset shows that when people believe there isn't enough, they stop thinking cooperatively and start thinking tribally. It doesn't matter if the scarcity is real or perceived. If your brain believes resources are limited, it activates ancient survival programming. Get yours before they take it. Protect your group's share. Eliminate competition if necessary. This is why so many wars have been fought over resources, territory, water, oil, fertile land. But even when resources aren't genuinely scarce, the perception is enough. Political leaders exploit this. They frame other groups as threats to your prosperity and safety. And your brain, wired for tribal competition, responds with aggression. Your brain doesn't care about making the pie bigger. It cares about making sure your tribe gets a slice. Here's one of the darkest truths about human psychology. You can't easily harm someone you see as fully human. Your brain has empathy circuits that activate when you see another person suffering. Evolution gave you these circuits because cooperation required emotional connection. But there's a mechanism that shuts those circuits off. Dehumanization. When you stop seeing someone as a person and start seeing them as something less, an animal, a threat, an obstacle, your empathy circuits don't activate, and suddenly, harming them doesn't trigger moral resistance. Psychologist Albert Bandura's research shows that humans use specific strategies to make violence acceptable. We use dehumanizing language. We call them animals, vermin, savages. We emphasize their differences and downplay their humanity, and our brains accept these frames. Neuroscience research shows that when people view dehumanized outgroup members, the parts of their brain associated with empathy show reduced activity. They're processing them differently, not as people, as objects or threats. And that's how ordinary people do extraordinary harm. Social psychologist Henry Tajfel identified social identity theory, the idea that a huge part of your self-concept comes from which groups you belong to, your nation, your religion, your tribe. And when those group identities are threatened, your brain responds as if you personally are under attack. This is why people will die for their country, even when they've never met most of the people in it. Why they'll fight wars over borders drawn by politicians they've never elected. Because in your brain's ancient wiring, the group's survival is your survival. Research on group psychology shows that when you identify strongly with a group, you start to see the world through the group's lens. Your moral judgments shift. Things that would be unthinkable as an individual become acceptable as a group member. Stanford psychologist Philip Zimbardo's research shows that when people feel anonymous within a group, they're more likely to engage in behaviors they'd never do alone. War provides the ultimate anonymity. You're not acting as yourself. You're acting as a soldier, a patriot, a defender. And in that role, normal moral constraints weaken. The individual disappears. The group remains. And the cycle continues. Here's the final piece. Why can't we just stop? Why does war create more war, generation after generation? Because your brain is wired for reciprocity. Evolutionary psychologists call it reciprocal altruism. You help people who help you. You punish people who harm you. This instinct created stable cooperation within groups. But that same instinct creates an endless cycle of retaliation. When your group is harmed, your brain demands payback, not because you're cruel, but because reciprocity is fundamental to how humans maintain social order. The problem is, each side believes they're responding to the other's aggression. Each act of violence is framed as justice, as defense, as necessary retaliation. So when we retaliate, it's justified defense. When they retaliate, it's unprovoked aggression. This creates the conflict cycle. Each generation grows up hearing stories of what the other side did. Those stories activate the same tribal instincts, the same us versus them wiring, the same need for justice, and the cycle continues. War creates trauma. Trauma creates grievance. Grievance demands revenge. Revenge creates more trauma. And the cycle perpetuates itself, generation after generation. So what does all this mean? War isn't the result of some groups being evil and others being good. It's the result of psychological mechanisms that evolved to keep small tribal groups alive, now operating in a world of nations, nuclear weapons, and global competition. Your brain's tribal instincts, your us versus them wiring, your scarcity mindset, your capacity for dehumanization, your group identity, your need for reciprocal justice, none of these things make you broken. They made your ancestors successful. But the world has changed faster than evolution can keep up, and the same instincts that protected small tribes now threaten the entire species. Understanding the psychology of war doesn't excuse it, but it does explain it. And maybe understanding why we keep fighting is the first step toward figuring out how to stop. Because the cycle doesn't break until we recognize the machinery driving it. And that machinery is inside all of us. If this made you think differently about human conflict, subscribe for more psychology that explains why we do what we do. Thanks for watching.